What's up, everybody? Welcome to Play Like a Jet Zone, live here on YouTube. I'm Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Greene. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for joining in, as you do every week, our live pre- and post-game show right here on Play Like a Jet Zone, the live YouTube series. 2020 has been our inaugural season. It's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of great interaction in the YouTube live chat. We got so many great things planned for the future, new ways to improve the show, some graphics, some other mics, and other stuff. So we'll keep you posted, but things are going to get even cooler moving into the future. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for jumping on. Hit subscribe right now. Also hit the thumbs up button for this video. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Got over 75 so far. It's been great, so thank you so much. So again, make sure you hit subscribe. Live here for the Play Like a Jet Zone pregame show. New York Jets, Seattle Seahawks, and folks, let's be honest. This game was circled before the year. Jamal Adams had this game circled before the year. The Jets traded their Mercurial All-Pro star for a bundle of draft picks, a first-round pick in 2021, a first-round draft pick in 2022, a third-round pick, a veteran safety in Bradley McDougald. I mean, they got a blockbuster haul that, quite frankly, not a lot of people gave them credit for to acquire. So tip of the hat to General Manager Joe Douglas of the New York Jets for getting that kind of draft haul for Jamal Adams. Now, for those Jet fans wondering, how has Jamal Adams even been performing out there on the West Coast? Of the single-season DB record set by Adrian Wilson back over a decade ago. Of course, it sets up where Jamal Adams can either tie or break that record today against the New York Jets. And I would almost give a Broadway Joe Namath guarantee that Jamal Adams will be breaking that record today against the Jets. And how sweet it will be for Jamal Adams. And hell, he almost broke that record with the New York Jets last year. With him on the team. The Jets used him in a lot of creative ways, and Jamal Adams has been doing a lot of great things with her. Now, he has missed several games due to injury. He had a groin injury, a little bit of a shoulder in 8 games, 7.5 sacks, incredible numbers, but we already knew that. And by the way, that is the jersey for today. This is the first time I'm wearing this Jamal Adams jersey since he was traded. So Jamal Adams donning that. All Jet fans, it should be like a Jamal Adams jersey day. I know a lot of people have mixed emotions on Jamal Adams, but I think we should all be happy, and here's why. That draft haul is going to set up so much success for the Jets, not only in 2021, but even deeper into the future. Because here's the thing. Jamal Adams, and I spoke with Corbin Smith of Sports Illustrated this week on the Jet Zone, my weekly Jets podcast audio version, and Corbin said that Jamal's going to want between $16 and $18 million a year, if not more than that. So again, Jets, be happy you're not going to have to pay that absurd number. Jamal Adams is a hell of a player, an all-pro talent, maybe even a future Hall of Famer one day. We'll see on that. But the fact of the matter is, the Jets stink. Jamal Adams on this team, maybe instead of 0-12, they're 1-11, maybe 2-10. It makes no difference. Quite frankly, the Jets are in a better position with where they are now than they're where they could have been with Jamal Adams on the team this year. So really, we should say, you know what, Jamal, thanks for the good times, but see ya. Jamal Adams this week in his media appearances said he doesn't have any beef with Adam Gase or the Jets, which great for him. Great for him there on the West Coast. But here's the thing for us, guys. It's the draft haul. And also, Ashton Davis, the rookie, he would have not gotten not nearly as much playing time as he had if Jamal Adams was here. So I think it's just great for all sides. It's going to be a great angle to watch in the game. Don't get me wrong. I'm hoping Jamal Adams gets embarrassed in coverage. He's had that a few times this season. Or maybe he gets trucked by somebody. That would be kind of fun watching that. So that'll be great. But as we revisit this Jamal Adams trade, I think of it even more highly now than I thought of it then. And I thought pretty highly of it then, that the Jets made out in a great way, and maybe Seattle did as well, but I think they overpaid. I think Jamal Adams has been a terrific player for him, but it's a safety at the end of the day. Those 2 first-round picks, if they're used at any other position, they become starters, and some positions to watch out for, by the way, could be one of the top receivers if they slip to the back end of round 1. I would love some interior offensive line play. Trey Smith out of Tennessee. Looks like a Mekhi Becton-like mauler that you could also put in there at guard. So whoever that other Seattle pick is, I think it'll be very interesting. And again, if you're just joining us, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We appreciate the support. And also jump into the YouTube live chat, depending on how you're watching this, either the question box over here or down below. Make sure you ask some questions down below. Let's go to Ram Showcase, which, of course, is the live YouTube show and podcast of Sheriff Joe Bags, a.k.a. Joe Brandon. We'll be chatting with him next week. Keep an eye out for that for Jets Rams week. Looking forward to that. Rams Showcase. Not the biggest fan of not having to play or now having to play against Jamal Adams 2 times a year. You're welcome, Rams, and NFC West in general. Enjoy that. Because Jamal Adams, for all that he can sometimes be picked in coverage, he is a playmaker. He could create fumbles. He hits. He lays the lumber. Madden's right. They give him all the high hit ratings. He lays the lumber. He's a passionate player. I think he makes the players around him better. Now, sometimes that's to a fault. He's too much of a me guy, and he makes like the Jets-Giants or the Giants-Seahawks game last week. He said, man, losing to New York team, and he kind of made it about himself. And then we have this Jets-Seattle game this week, and he's kind of made it a lot about himself. So, again, he could kind of be a selfish player from that perspective and a me guy that kind of takes away from the team. As great of a passionate leader as he is, that sometimes can draw away. But you're welcome, Rams and 49ers and Cardinals. You guys can deal with him, 6 times a year, twice a piece. He's a great player. I'm not crapping on Jamal Adams. I love Jamal Adams when he was here. I have his jersey here for Pete's sake. I mean, I love Jamal Adams. But the fact of the matter is, I think it was clearly best for both sides to move on. And actually, there's a lot of Jets-Seattle connections in this game. So Brandon Shell, by virtue of this past offseason, Jets switched right tackles. There was no trade involved. The Jets moved on from Brandon Shell, and the Seahawks moved on from George Fant. Brandon Shell, the former right tackle of the Jets, has gone over to Seattle. He's dealt with some injuries, but he's expected to be back for this game against the Jets. That works out very nicely. And then George Fant, an athletic guy that doesn't have a lot of starting experience or didn't before coming to the Jets, it's actually been a pleasant surprise. He's had some down moments. There's no question about it. But George Fant has been pretty solid. And surprisingly, us Jet fans thought Brandon Shell was not very good. But he's been pretty good apparently for the Seattle Seahawks. He's been a very good pass protector, but run protector, not as great as Corbin Smith from Sports Illustrated told me again this week on the Jet Zone. Him in the run game is mediocre at best. It's just beat the Seahawks last week, and that nasty, it was like 17-12 or something. But I think Seattle's going to be more on their game than they've ever been, which is good for the Jets because, quite frankly, everyone's saying they need to lose all these games to get Trevor Lawrence. And boy, was last week close. Let's talk about that for a second. The Jets were this close to winning a football game, and they've been that close a couple of times, but they were that close in the Raiders game. They were beating the Patriots by 10 in the fourth quarter. The Broncos Thursday night game earlier in the year, they had their rainbow. It continues to be for the New York Football Jets, and boy, how attractive could they be if they have the number one pick, a bunch of money, 18 draft picks over the next 2 years, and that has drawn a lot of interest, including that of Bill Cowher. Yes, Hall of Famer this year, Pro Football Hall of Famer Bill Cowher, Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers 14 years ago. And if Joe Branham's still in here, I'm actually going to ask you this question next week, but I will broach it now, is this interesting fun fact that Bill Cowher, and there's Jets connection, Boomer Esiason, former Jets quarterback who does radio now, he said that Bill Cowher would have interest in the Jets and coming back out of retirement. And this week on the Jet Zone podcast, it'll be worth revisiting if you haven't heard it, even after this week. It's this interesting factoid. In the first half of the podcast, I thought, Bill Cowher. Let me look at some other coaches that have done long layoffs and have come back and the success they've had. And there's been guys like John Gruden, who's in right now. He sat out the NFL for a decade. He left in 2018, back in 2018. He's a guy that's had a middling success there a little bit. So he went a decade gone. But let's go back even further. Joe Gibbs, of course, won 3 Super Bowl titles with the Washington Redskins at that time, now Washington football team. 4 appearances in the Super Bowl, 3 titles. He left the game, then came back in the early 2000s to help out the Washington football team, and he had some success, brought him back to the playoffs. But a coach I'm going to bring up, and again, we'll talk about it on Ram Showcase next week, Dick Vermeil. So he's there with the Eagles in the mid-'70s to early '80s, had some success, that was fine, and then he left the game, came back 15 years later, and the greatest show on turf. The first 2 years under Dick Vermeil were god-awful. They're like 4-12, 5-11. They were terrible. And then in that third year, some grocery bagger named Kurt Warner from the AFL, they give him a shot, and of course they end up winning the Super Bowl. Dick Vermeil walks away from the game. He ends up coming back a few years later and coaches the Kansas City Chiefs for a couple of years. But the point is that, and there's a lot of parallels I drew between Dick Vermeil's return and Bill Cowher's potential return. For instance, if Bill Cowher ends up coming back and coaching the Jets next year, the time span of him leaving and him coming back would be 15 years. The same time span, by the way, that when Dick Vermeil left in 1982 and came back in 97 with the Rams, 15-year layoff. They're around the same age. At that time, Dick Vermeil was 63 years old. Bill Cowher right now is 63 years old. He'll turn 64 by the start of the next season. So there's a lot of connective tissue here between Vermeil, who came back, won a championship, football immortality, and he gets that championship, and Rams fans remember that and will remember that to the day they die. If Bill Cowher can potentially come back, maybe he can have the same when the richest success. Again, 2009, 2010 were great. They're great memories for the modern day Jets fan. But think about the late 90s when Bill Parcells walked through the door and immediately commanded the respect of players, teammates, and opponents around the league. The Jets need a Bill Parcells type, and Bill Cowher is a Bill Parcells type. He has immediate credibility. He's got the Super Bowl hardware. Now, he's older, and it's a risk, but how much more of a risk is Bill Cowher as opposed to some of these hot coordinator names? Eric Bieniemy, Arthur Smith. I mean, they're just names. They're just guys. You bring them in, and we'll see what happens. At least Bill Cowher has some backing. He's been there, done that. He's won a Super Bowl. For me, what I want as a Jets head coach, I know it's the Jets Seattle preview show, but just since we're in these waters, I want a leader of men. I want a guy who is going to command the respect. I want a CEO. I don't care if it's offense, defense, special teams. I don't give a shit what the label is. What I care about is making sure there's a leader of men in here. And that's what's important to me. Now, before we get too crazy deep in the show, again, feel free to drop questions if you're just joining us. Hit subscribe. Also, drop questions in the YouTube live chat, either here or here, and we'll answer them on the show. I want to give two shout-outs to two wonderful sponsors that have supported me since day one in this new venture. First off, right behind me, El Chapo at Flags, he made this beautiful custom banner that you can get for your man cave or tailgate, wherever you want. He can make it great price and great quality. I've had it all year long behind me on the YouTube live show. So make sure to hit him up, El Chapo at Flags. Search him on Facebook. And speaking of Facebook, Jabber's Wing Sauces. There's now a Facebook page you can go to, and make sure you go there as well. You can like the page, Jabber's Wing Sauces. Also, the YouTube description is the phone number to text if you want some info. They've got El Diablo, bee sting, garlic parm, a bunch of wing sauces you can put on burgers, wings, whatever you want. It's great. It's fantastic. And support local during these trying times. So make sure you support. Would really appreciate it. First off, give out a couple holiday gifts. Buy some holiday gifts for yourself. It's great quality. And he's a great guy. And he supported the show. And I appreciate that. All right. So those two shout outs. Again, Jabber's Wing Sauces. Search them out on Facebook. Hit the like button and make sure you purchase some wing sauces. They're great and affordable. Great prices there. And then El Chapo at Flex. Make sure you check him out. Let's go back to the YouTube live chat. The culture change that Vermeil brought was jarring. That's why it took a few years to install. The second the team bought in, it was game on. Just a bummer. Yeah, Mike Mark followed and slowly killed the team. That's true. So, there's always that too. But it took 3 years. It was the first 2 years, again, were a bit of a struggle. They get Kurt Warner, who replaced Trent Greene, who got injured, and we all know that story. Rams Showcase, again, I'm sure we'll explore it next week as well. But I'm looking forward to that part of the chat. And for me, as we get this deep, I'm sure you don't really want the X's and O's of 0-12 Jets versus the Seattle Seahawks. So I understand that. So I'm going to try to give you more flavor. We'll go into some different areas on these preview shows as we get deeper. And hopefully next year we could be previewing, X's and O's and key matchups and X Factor and some of those things. I understand why that wouldn't have the same flavor this year. But again, that Dick Vermeil, Bill Cowher connection I explored this week on the Jet Zone. Again, wherever you get your podcast, you can listen to the latest episode. That's been a very popular episode. So I kind of looked in at Joe Gibbs, John Gruden, Dick Vermeil is the guy that I think Jet fans should circle and say, can the Bill Cowher thing work? Dick Vermeil is the guy to kind of explore. Again, there's a lot of eerily similar parallels. They both would have been out of the game for 15 years. Vermeil was from 82 to 97, and then Cowher would be from 2006 to 2021. And by the way, same ages. Again, Vermeil was 63 when he came back with the Rams in that Super Bowl winning season. Cowher 63 now, would be 64 by the start of the next season. So a lot of connections there, a lot of parallels. So something to explore potentially if that's something that you're interested in for that. Again, some other connections here between the Jets and Seahawks. You can also drop questions in at any time as we're kind of going through this live pregame show. So Brandon Shell, right tackles the Jets in Seattle, switch those guys. Geno Smith, by the way, former Jets bust, of course. Second-round pick, 39th overall. That's just ingrained in my memory. And Geno Smith was pissed off in the green room and all that crap. And then Geno Smith has been the primary backup for Russell Wilson for the last couple of years. I'm glad because I love Geno Smith. I know he got punched in the face and broke his jaw, and that's another Jets headline and storyline. But I'm glad Geno Smith has found a home because I really liked Geno Smith, and hopefully he continues. You'll see Geno Smith on the sideline, probably not in the game, maybe in the game if Seattle is beating the piss out of the Jets, which is certainly possible because I think they're going to come pissed off after last week. And I saw this on the Rich Eisen show this week. It's funny. Apparently, ahead of one of those games that you had, I think it was the Eagles-Seahawks game, Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, went up to DK Metcalf before the game and said, "Hey, you're no Megatron, but you're all right." And DK Metcalf went, I'm okay, you're going to disrespect me like that? And the DK Metcalf went crazy. Unfortunately, and Rich Eisen said this on a show, Greg Williams is fired, so we won't get the Greg Williams, Jamal Adams thing, but Greg Williams probably could have talked to DK Metcalf before the game and said, "Hey, you suck." And then he may have lit up the Jets. I think he's going to light up the Jets anyway, but just, again, another interesting factoid of something as well. So, anywho, Geno Smith is in this game, but he probably won't play. Brendan Shell. Pete Carroll, for those who remember, speaking of culture change and things of that nature, Pete Carroll was the coach for the Jets back in the mid-'90s, and then he eventually left the game, came back and played with coached with the New England Patriots, and he went to USC, and we all know. But Pete Carroll, this lovable, affable guy, this guy who had this college-like energy, college-like, personality, and he's won a Super Bowl. Should have won 2. Don't got to go into that. Don't need to piss off Pete Carroll any more than you probably already is about that. But Pete Carroll, we just need a fun-loving culture. Now, Rex Ryan cultivated that for a couple of years, and then his act got stale, and it all fell apart. But I remember when Rex Ryan was hired, and this is also what I want in the next head coach. Immediately, there's a sense of, Another thing I'm looking for is this, because when Rex Ryan was hired, he immediately said, "I'm not kissing Bill Belichick's rings," and us as a fan base rallied, said, "Whoa, look at this guy coming in," because we went from Eric Mancini, quiet, "Hey man, this is the game. This is how it happens. This is the game." And we went from that to Rex Ryan going, "Boom, screw you. I'm winning Super Bowls here." We were like, "Wow, cool, awesome." It's exactly what the Jets fan base needed at that time. And then, of course, he put his money where his mouth is and went to AFC Championship games in back-to-back years, which was great. Jets fans need an injection of life, credibility, something, some chutzpah. That's really what they need. The reason I didn't want Adam Gase from the get-go, and you can know that if you go back to my Jet Zone podcast from way back when they hired him 2 years ago. But I didn't want him at the time, and there's a lot of reasons I didn't. One main reason, someone just fired the guy. They just said, "You know what? We think you suck, Adam Gase. You're fired." And the Jets went, a division rival said you suck and don't want you? Hell, we'll fix you. And then we see what's happened over the last 2 years. So to me, like the Jets, I want somebody who's on the uptick. Okay, I don't want somebody who's losing like Harbaugh at Michigan. Ugh, things are horrible there. How can the Jets hire him and go like, "You know what? He sucked there, but with us, hey, he's going to be pretty good." Now, I'm not saying Harbaugh is terrible, but he's terrible right now. I want a guy like Bill Cowher. He's been gone for 15 years. Like, if you hire him, it's uptick. Wow, look, Super Bowl championship, this. I want good feelings at the start of this relationship. I don't want things to end bad. Do you know what they say about dates and first impressions and things? I want a coach who gets hired, again, who's on the upswing, who's on the uptick. And maybe if it's a college guy like Matt Campbell, Iowa State looks pretty good. Sure, that's fantastic. Great. Right? You get an NFL guy. If you pick the Chiefs guy, Eric Bieniemy, again, I have my hesitations, and we could dive into that deeper when we get in the offseason. But, these are the Chiefs offense. Oh, cool, sexy. All right. I want uptick. I want good things. I want positivity when I don't want him to start the relationship on horrible terms. So that's another weird factoid that I want, man. Yeah, so let's address that. Mike Nikoski jumping on the live chat, Marvin Lewis. Let's talk about that for a second. Because... So when I heard that Marvin Lewis, and it was an NFL report, I believe it was either Tom Pelissero or Ian Rappaport, they tweet out this week that Marvin Lewis, a name to watch, he's seriously getting considered for NFL jobs right now because of his pedigree and all that. And I immediately tweet out, "Jets, don't even bleep and think about it." Okay, so here's the thing about Marvin Lewis. And there's been a lot of Marvin Lewis truthers out there who all of a sudden said, "Hey, Marvin Lewis wasn't that bad. Look what he did in Cincinnati. They sucked before him. They went to the playoffs a couple of times. And then when he left, they still sucked." What are the standards here? Hey, look, he brought him to the playoffs a couple of times and disappointed. I don't want that if I'm the Jets. I don't want to go to the – first off, they haven't been to the playoffs in 10 years. So a playoff trip would be nice. Don't get me wrong. But let's look at the end game here. What are our standards? Just going to the playoffs and losing? No. Our standards should be winning championships, something they haven't done, God knows, over 50 years. So Marvin Lewis, who I've heard floated, I would – again, here's a guy who has been out of the league for a couple years. So you would think that Marvin Lewis, again, is on the upswing, is on the uptick. No. I'd be like, Marvin Lewis, the guy who couldn't win in the playoffs? No, I don't want Marvin Lewis. Now, I hope he gets back in the league somewhere else. I'd love to, like a social experiment, watch from afar. I don't want to watch it on my team. Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis. Who the hell is Marvin Lewis? I don't want Marvin Lewis on the Jets. Are you kidding me? That wouldn't be entertaining. That wouldn't be cool. That wouldn't be great. Now, again, he's been there. So, here, again, going back to some of the things I want and whoever the next head coach of the Jets is going to be, I certainly want a guy who's been there. I don't want a guy who's never been a head coach before. Like, to me, that would be underwhelming. I don't just want a coordinator who's never done it before. You put him in there because this is the most important hire in franchise history. The Jets have only had the number one pick one time in history. That was Keyshawn Johnson, who they drafted, right? So they had Keyshawn Johnson. They never get the number one pick. They always have the number 2 pick or the number 3 pick or 4, 5, 6 and win a bunch of meaningless games at the end. Having the number 1 pick doesn't happen often if you're a Jets fan. It's only happened once. And Keyshawn Johnson, they ended up trading him away for multiple first-rounders, and he was a hell of a player and all that jazz. But anywho, let's get back to the point here. Okay? They don't get the number 1 pick often. And, oh, yeah, in the 1 year they look like they're finally going to get the number 1 pick after a long time of not having it. Trevor Lawrence, the generational prospect. Oh, thank God. It's Trevor Lawrence time. You can't bone this if you're the Jets. Trevor Lawrence, the money, 18 draft picks over the next 2 years. This is a pretty important hire. Pretty important. Más importante, as they will say, south of the border. So again, this is critically important. You can't mess this up. You can't screw the pooch on this one. Okay? The Jets have messed up a lot of hires. Like Adam Gase was just a stupid hire. I didn't like it at the time. Don't like it now. Won't like it even when they fire him. I'll be like, that was god-awful. But if he delivers Trevor Lawrence, maybe I'll look at it differently. But again, let's stay on track. Okay? The Jets need to get the right guy. Marvin Lewis is not the right guy. So, Mike, I'm glad he brought it up because that was a rumor this week. Not necessarily a rumor to the Jets, but just a rumor that he was available. And the Jets are going to be available. And when 2 things are available, people go, no. Whoop. Don't think so. Whoop. Pull them apart. Nope. Cock block. If they're like, maybe we're interested in each other, I'll jump in the middle. Whoop. No, you're not. Cock block it. Just be the brother of the sister's going on a date. Whoop. No, you're not. So, no Marvin Lewis. No thank you. Thank you, but no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. Swipe left. I think it's swipe right if you like them, so swipe left. Or swipe left for you guys who are watching this. Swipe left. Swipe left for me. No thank you. So, Marvin Lewis, you can shove it. I'm not interested. Going back to Rams Showcase here, Cowher is who I wanted 4 years ago. I don't hate who the Rams ended up with. Yeah, Sean McVay, again, a very ballsy hire by the Rams at the time. A guy who was in his early 30s. They hire him, take a chance. He's been great. And that's what was funny to me. Before the Bill Cowher rumors erupted early this week from Boomer Esiason, I thought to myself, man, it's funny because back in the day for the Jets have had multiple hires and fires over the last decade. And every time they've had a hire or fire in the last decade, the 2 names that immediately jumped up are either John Gruden, before he came to the Raiders in 2018, or Bill Cowher. Every time with the Jets fans, hey, Bill Cowher, John Gruden this year. Maybe it would make sense, huh? What do you think? And then after John Gruden got hired by the Raiders, 10-year contract, he was off the market. It seemed like, okay, it's been 12 years, 13 years, 14 years. Like, the number kept increasing. Bill Cowher's finally off the table. We're not even talking about that name anymore. And it seems like we haven't for the last couple of years. And now, ironically enough, it comes back on Sports Talk Radio in New York on Monday, and then now it's kind of run rampant. I talked about it on the podcast and everything else. But it's just funny because I thought the Bill Cowher thing was dead, and apparently not. But we'll see what happens on Bill Cowher. Interesting on Bill Cowher, I will want to share this nugget, and then we can get into a few other topics here. On the Bill Cowher thing, Rich Cimini, who covers the New York Jets, has covered the Jets for the last 30 years from ESPN, has a morning column every Sunday that I read religiously. And basically, it's like 9 scoops around the league. He talks about a couple of topics. And one of the topics he talked to is he spoke with Bill Cowher. Bill Cowher spoke with ESPN and said he's not interested in the job. So Jet fans, don't get your hopes up. But if you read the quote, and you should go check it out. Bill Cowher says, I don't want to comment on any jobs that aren't available. Again, a lot of people are connecting the dots with the Jets. And then secondly, he said, out of all the current jobs that are open right now, I'm not interested. So if you read between the lines, as Jack Black says, read between the lines, okay? Bill Cowher, and it goes with a lot of NFL people I talk to. They're like, I don't want to talk about a job that's not open. I like talking about firing people and this and that. I think if you read between the lines, Bill Cowher is interested in the Jets job. And once it becomes available, and they have Trevor Lawrence, they got money, and Bill Cowher likes Joe Douglas, money talks. Trevor Lawrence talks. Pairing yourself as a head coach with a generational quarterback prospect, not so bad. I've been out of it for 15 years, and Bill Cowher has that coaching itch on his left ass cheek. He's like, you know what? Let's give it a whirl. Let's go. That's going to be the big thing for me, because if Bill Cowher comes out, and I like part of his answer, he has too much respect for the game and things like this. I don't want Bill Cowher to come out for a money grab, right? Obviously, if the Jets or any team brings in Bill Cowher, they're going to be paying him crazy money. The highest paid coaches in the league make somewhere between $12 and $9 million per year annually. That's basically the top 5. They fall within that range. If you're the Jets or any team and you bring in Bill Cowher, you're going to be paying up some pretty biscuits to bring in Bill Cowher into the fold. And the thing I say as a Jets fan, if he's going to do that, and it seems like he has respect for the game and he's a Hall of Famer and he wouldn't just go for the money grab. He's got plenty of money. He's got a cushy job. NFL and CBS. He's doing the pregame show as we're doing our pregame show right now. Bill Cowher is in a great spot. He doesn't have to do any of the hard stuff with coaching. He just shows up. Hey, what's your opinion on this? Hey, I'm Bill Cowher. Here's my opinion. Like, he's in a great spot. If he decides to leave, the only reason could be he loves coaching. He wants to get back into it. He sees a golden opportunity here. He lives in New York most of the year now. His wife is a diehard Jets fan, believe it or not. There's a lot of connective tissue there where Bill Cowher can be like, you know what, let me save the Jets. And by the way, Bill Cowher, come on down. I bowed down in your presence. Come be the guy. When it was first brought up, I went, I don't know how I feel. And then the more I dug in, the more I'm like, you know what? This works. I'm in. I'm in on Bill Cowher. I am in. So the more I've investigated, the more I like it. The more I like it. Anywho, everyone who's jumping in here on this Play Like a Jets pregame show, if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. If you're old to the channel, still hit subscribe if you haven't. Also, drop in questions and comments in the YouTube live chat as we're being interactive here, as always, ahead of Jets Seahawks coming up in a little less than 30 minutes. The Jamal Adams revenge game, as we're calling it. But this Jets team is going to be a bit underwhelming. Let's get into some of the injury report, where normally I start the show, but let's get into it now. Denzel Mims, a young, promising second-round pick, wide receiver out of Baylor, will not play in this game for the Jets. He had a family emergency back in Texas, and obviously our thoughts and prayers and love are sent out to Denzel Mims and his family, who are dealing with something that's far beyond football. So obviously, family is more important than football. So I want to say that. But he will not be available in this game because by leaving for this family emergency, he could not participate in the mandatory COVID protocols and testings. So thus, he would have had to participate on Wednesday. It obviously is game day now. It's well past that, so he could not participate. So he is out for the game. So the Jets' offense is going to be a lot weaker than it's been, and it hasn't been great as is. So a Jets-Seattle upset. The current line from when we did our picks on the radio show was 13.5. I'm sure it's even higher than that now. The line opened at 15. I don't see how the Jets compete in this game, quite frankly. The next 2 weeks, they play powerhouses from the NFC West that are both vying for playoff positioning. The Rams are going to make the playoffs. The Seahawks are going to make the playoffs. And then the third team they play in that stretch, they got 4 games left on the schedule. They got Seattle, LA Rams, Cleveland, and New England. New England has a less than 10% chance of making the playoffs, so they could be out of it by then. But nonetheless, it looks like Seattle, Rams, and Cleveland are all going to make the playoffs. It just depends on the seeding, potentially, for that. But New England is the one that's on the outside looking in. So these next 2 games, the Jets are about to get skull banged. I mean, they're about to get beat they're about to get pistol whipped. Is my prediction for the next 2 games. All right, let's go to Rams Showcase. I would not hate a Jets win today one bit. Who needs to have an amazing day for the Jets to pull this off? I bet you would. That's a good question. The the Seattle secondary has been trash all year. Recently, they've been better, and a lot of people seem to be putting a lot of stock into that. The thing I would probably say is look who they've played. Teams like the Eagles and the Giants and this and that. I think the only reason they haven't been getting lit up like a Christmas tree is because they haven't been playing a lot of good people. Now, Sam Darnold obviously has not played very well this season. It would have to come from the receivers, and they're going to have to get guys like Jeff Smith, Braxton Berrios, who you're probably like, who are those people? Because of all the injuries that the Jets, injuries and family emergencies, and God knows what else has happened this year. Chris Herndon, receivers, a great day from Sam Darnold. That's the key. Frank Gore coming back today after the concussion last week actually hurts the Jets because they got younger guys on the team that play pretty well. Ty Johnson, by the way, here's a fun fact, is the first 100-yard rusher in the Adam Gase era of being here for a year and a half with the Jets. So Ty Johnson. But I think he's going to get buried behind Frank Gore. I think Adam Gase has a hard-on for Frank Gore, and he loves giving him more reps. So, again, to me, is Sam Darnold going crazy. That's really it. But the secondary is injured. Bless Austin is supposed to come back at corner, but it's Bless Austin. We're talking about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett here. That's a mismatch nightmare. So I'm really concerned. But if it's going to happen, Joe, it's not. But if it was to happen, it would be Sam Darnold on this passing attack for the Jets kind of lighting it up and going crazy. That's really their only opportunity to win this game, and I don't think it's very good. I think DK Metcalf is going to go wild, and the Jets' run defense is pretty good. We'll see how Chris Carson fares, but boy, I am not feeling confident about what the Jets can do, but I'm going to enjoy the game anyway. And by the way, we'll be back right after the game, shortly after the final whistle for Play Like a Jet Show, the live post-game show. So make sure you join us right here on my YouTube channel. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe. Appreciate the support all year long. We've been doing some cool off-season stuff with draft and free agency and everything else coming up, and, of course, the inevitable coaching search. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, everybody, we'll see you after the game. Thank you for the support. We'll see you. Go Jets.